Hey friends, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. Today we're going to be doing the long-awaited astrology video, and I'm a little nervous about doing it, and I've put it off a lot. I do talk about astrology a lot. I'm really into it. I talk about it online a lot. I talk about it in my life a lot. It's just like something that I'm really into. And I've put off making videos about it and talking about it mainly because I'm not a professional and I don't want to like spread misinformation and stuff. Because like I study it and I do a lot of research on it myself. Like I have a book that I read a lot. I look at stuff online. I watch YouTube videos. But I mean, I'm not like a professional, you know? So I want to be a professional. Maybe one day I will get to that point. But right now, I feel like I have a lot of knowledge, but I'm not like perfect. I don't know everything there is to know. So that was my main thing about like being scared about posting. It's just because like I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to spread the wrong information. I actually started thinking about it because one of my friends asked me to make a video, and I started thinking about it. And the last time she asked me was probably like a year ago, or the last time I really thought about making a video was like a year ago. And I feel like I know a lot more now than I did then. There's my cat. The nice thing about having a futon and a bed in the back is you get to see my animals all the time. I thought we could start with like the basics today, kind of like scratch the surface and start getting like a base understanding of astrology down, and then we can go from there and we can see if you guys like these videos, if you want me to do more and stuff like that. I do have this book that I get a lot of my information from. I'll link this down below if you're interested. I got a lot of sticky notes. I'll be reading like little short sentences out of here. And yeah, hopefully I explained this good and we can all understand and be on the same page. By the way, really quick, if you see me looking to the side, it's because I've kind of written out like some little tips and like notes for myself to remember what to say. So it's not like a script. It's just kind of like I want to stay on track. I'll get very distracted. So anyways, if you see me looking to the side, I'm just trying to stay on track and not get distracted. Okay, so when you think about astrology, you probably think of your sun sign or your star sign. That term is very interchangeable, and that is the sign that you probably already knew about when clicking on this video if you're a beginner. So for an example, I was born on December 7th and I'm a Sagittarius. This is something, your sun sign, your star sign is what most people know, is what most people talk about. You can probably find it in like a magazine or like those horoscopes you find online. It's just based off of like your surface level thing, you know? But anyways, most people don't believe in astrology because they only know about like this surface level of sun signs and star signs. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because if there was only 12 signs and 12 different personalities, like nobody would believe that. And you probably know somebody with the same sign as you and you're like, well, we don't really act the same. And I'm about to explain why. Not all Sagittariuses are going to act the same, and not like all the signs. You know, there's not only 12 personalities. We're a lot more complicated than that. So that's where birth charts come in, and that is like the big thing that you have to understand when looking at like your astrology and stuff. You're not just your sun sign. You have all these other influences that come into play. So birth charts can get very complicated and very complex, but I'm gonna try to explain it in the most like simple way possible so that we can all like at least understand like the base idea of it. Okay, so what is a birth chart? A birth chart maps out your personality or like your horoscope based on where every single planet was the moment that you were born. So that means that every single planet has a different impact on your personality. And so this explains why not all signs are exactly the same. Not every Sagittarius is going to have the same moon sign or the same Mars sign or Venus or rising. And because of that, we all are different and we have different personalities. So birth charts are very, very unique to the person, and they're like snowflakes, if you can think about it like that. Like they're all very different, and there's so many layers to it. So I hope that makes sense. So how can you find your birth chart? How can you calculate it? It's all based off of the day you were born, what time you were born, and the location where you're born. And you can like plug all of this into like one of those calculator things. I'll link one down below, so you can just click the link that I put below and you can type all of that in and it'll give you your birth chart. For an example, this is my birth chart, and I know that this looks really complicated. and like a lot. But if you're a beginner, ignore the giant circle with all the little lines and just look at the little square on the left, and it'll kind of just tell you exactly what all your planets are. Okay, so now let's get more specific. Let's talk more about like what each planet represents. Like, what are all these planets, and how are they going to affect your personality, or how are they affecting your personality? So we're going to start with the big three, and this is your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. This is like the big three. They like affect your personality the most. They have the biggest pull and effect on your horoscope and your personality. So we're going to start with those three, and then we'll get into all the other planets because they're all important, but these three just have the most impact on your personality. Okay, so your sun sign or star sign, like I said before, those terms are interchangeable. You probably already knew what your sun sign is before clicking on this video. Like I said, I'm a Sagittarius. Just to help you understand exactly why it is the way that it is, the sun circles the earth one time per year. And so it enters each sign 12 times for the whole year. And that's why it's almost like if you're born in this month, then you're this sign. But not quite. It's a little off. It's about like every 20 to 21 to 22 days, it switches signs. That's how the sun sign works. So you can think of your sun sign as kind of like the base of your personality. It kind of all starts with your sun sign. It is kind of the most important and does have the biggest influence on your personality. Your sun sign determines how other people see you, your individuality, your style, your drive, your goals. And the book, it describes it. I liked this little analogy that the book had. So let me read this one little sentence to you. So think of your horoscope as a painting of you. The characteristics of your sun sign are the broad strokes that the artist first lays down on the canvas. The artist outlines your general shape, the plans and the angles of your face, the way in which you hold your body. In the same way, your sun sign maps out your general character. So it's kind of just like the base of your thing. I hope that analogy made sense. If not, you can think about it as like maybe like a mixed drink. If you started a mixed drink, what alcohol you decide to start with is going to change the taste of the whole mixed drink. If you start with tequila or if you start with whiskey, it's going to taste completely different, you know? So your sun sign is just kind of like that base personality. It does have the strongest impact because you got to think like your sun sign is going to hold the rest of everything else. You know, if you think about, like he said, a painting, an analogy, if you start a painting with a certain color and then you put colors on top of it, they'll look differently. Like if you put blue on top of pink, it might have a little purple tint to it. If you put blue on top of white, it'll look blue. And so like having that base, it's really going to affect everything else that we put into the drink. It's going to affect the other colors that we put onto the painting. I hope that made sense. So to sum it up, your sun sign is just the base of your personality, and it has the biggest and most impact on your personality and everything else that goes along with your horoscope. So you know how we said the sun orbits the earth once per year? The moon orbits the earth pretty much once a month. So the moon is constantly changing in and out of signs. Every month it's going into all 12 signs per month. So like today, for an example, I'm pretty sure the moon is in Sagittarius. So you can see, and then in a couple days, in like 2 or 3 days, it'll be in Capricorn, and then in a couple days it'll be in in Aquarius, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, like the moon is constantly every couple days switching signs. So you can kind of like track the moon and see where it's at, and like where the moon's at every single day can really influence you and how you feel. And how you act and stuff. And that's kind of like, have you ever heard of people like acting crazy when there's a full moon out? Like that's an example of that. Also, like, have you ever had a really random day where like you feel really emotional and you're like, I don't know why I feel emotional, and sometimes you can't even link it to like, oh, it's your period or anything. You're just like, why am I feeling so emotional? And it's probably because the moon's in something that's really influencing you. I'll link Deborah Silverman's channel down below because she uploads every single day and kind of talks about where all the planets are and how that can influence you or how you should take advantage of that energy. Okay, so next is your moon sign. And this is the second most important influence in your horoscope. The moon stands for your emotions, your instincts, and your unconscious mind. The moon represents your instinctive action, kind of like how you might act before you think. That's your moon sign. The book does mention that you could find this part of your personality disturbing, but I mean that does kind of make sense if you think about it, because you got to think like it's your inner thought, your dialogue, and most of the time this can be rooted down to your hate, your jealousy, your deepest, darkest secrets and fantasies. So like for it to be a part of us that we find disturbing, I mean, you got to think like your inner thoughts and your dialogue and like those deepest, darkest secrets and your fantasies aren't something that we normally would admit or talk to about people. So it can be a little disturbing, and that's just especially depending on the sign that you have in your moon sign. It does make sense of why the book would say that you might find like it disturbing. But of course, that's not all the moon is. It's all about your emotions. The moon rules over your 5 senses. So your moon can really be all those little pleasures that you enjoy, like candles, your favorite scent, your favorite food, your favorite music. All that can be rooted down to your moon sign because it rules over your emotions and your senses. There is a lot to unpack when it comes to your moon sign because it stands for your childhood, your dreams, your memories, your past. For an example, me and my best friend actually have the same moon sign, and a lot of the same themes in our childhood and our life have been very parallel. I'm not saying that the exact same things have happened to us, but they're very similar and they parallel each other, and it's almost kind of scary. Not scary, but kind of weird to think about how we both have the same moon sign and how similar our lives have been. So I know we touched on a lot, so if you take anything from the moon sign, just know that it rules over your inner thoughts, your subconscious, your emotions, and your inner psyche. So, your rising sign. If you're kind of confused about what a rising sign is because it's not a planet and you're like, why does this have a huge influence? Why is it in your top 3? Let me explain what it is. So your rising sign is the sign that was rising in the eastern horizon at the time you were born. How I like to think about a rising sign is kind of like your outer shell. It's like the first thing that people see. It's your first impression on people. It's really like everything to do with your outer. Sometimes this can be more revealing than your sun or moon sign just because it's like your first impression on people. If anyone's ever said like, oh, you don't act like a Pisces, you act more like a Sagittarius, like maybe that's because your rising sign is in Sagittarius and they don't really know you that well. So I'm going to read something from the book just to make sure we're all on the same page. Your rising sign is like the door to a house, the entrance way that visitors first see and must pass through in order to look into the house itself. So like we said with the moon sign, that's your inner thoughts and emotions. So you gotta think like someone has to really get to know you to see that part of you, to really get to know like your moon sign, you know what I'm saying? So when it comes to like your rising sign, you gotta think like if it's like the front door of a house, that makes a lot of sense. Or kind of just like your outer shell, what you're comfortable showing to people when you first meet them, or like before you don't like, maybe you don't like to let a lot of people in, so they probably see a lot of your rising sign. Your rising sign can really characterize the way that you interact with people. It also speaks to your coping mechanisms and your how you react to new life. And when I think of coping mechanisms, I have a really bad habit of biting my nails. And I don't know, I think of like outer things, coping mechanisms that can be like drinking, it can be like biting your fingernails. I know people that like pull up their eyebrows, stuff like that, you know, like coping mechanisms can be very outer at times. Your rising sign makes you feel the most comfortable physically. It's referred to as the sign of self in the book. Your self-awareness, your self-sufficiency, your self-interest, all of those things play into your rising sign. It signifies your goals, your creative powers, how you might go about reaching those goals. It really influences your physical characteristics and mannerisms, and just basically anything outer if you think about it. So like your first impression on people, your mannerisms. I'm talking with my hands a lot right now, like stuff like that. Like that is really influenced and controlled by your rising sign. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. I do want to do a part 2 where I go into the other planets. Today I just wanted to touch on the top 3 and like how birth charts work. So if you want a part 2 to this where I go into how the Mars and the Venus and all the other planets influence you in your birth chart, make sure to like this video and I'll definitely look into that. Well, not look into it. I kind of am already like sketching out that, but this was a lot and I don't want to like throw a lot of information at you at once and then you're just kind of like confused. So let's just start with the basics. You understand how a birth chart works. You can take this time to look up your birth chart, get all your information, kind of look at your sun, your moon, and your rising, and then I'll be back with another video explaining the other planets, and that way you're not getting like info dumped and you're getting overwhelmed and you don't know what you're doing, you know. So let's just start with this. Let's take a breath, let's analyze what we know so far, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the other planets. Alright, I post videos every single week, so make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! I hope that made sense. Gosh. Falling. Oh, I fall so hard.